was the spreadsheet that I sent to everyone today. Has everybody seen it or got it? Mark, you were on it too, I believe.
Yep.
You should
Yeah, I got it. Yep,
Okay.
thank you.
Got it, Joe.
And I don't have everyone on my screen at the moment, but I told Bill McGinn that I would open the meeting with him as a committee member remarks. He has some later commitments, and I wanted to get our last meeting, I left him for last, and he had to leave. So I promised him I'd put him up first this time. Bill, are you here and listening?
Doesn't look like he's on, Joe, but I saw him like an hour ago and he was supposed to be on. Sorry.
Okay, well, I'm not going to put you on last, Bill, but wherever you are, but we'll have to changing my lighting here. We'll have to move on to the next item. Thought we'd have some time, but the next item is well, the approval of the minutes would have been the next item. Jacqueline told me that she was not able to get the minutes out in time to everyone for everyone to review. So I'd like to table that. Now, any parliamentarians here? Do I need a motion to table that?
So move to table item number 2.
Second. Any seconds?
I'll second.
Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. So we will move the approval of the minutes, the October 11th meeting, to our next meeting. And that is, if you looked at let me get that back up.
November 7th, we could add it to the special meeting.
November 7th is not one of our scheduled meetings, but our regularly scheduled meetings would be October 24th to November 14th. So there's a 3-week gap in there instead of every other week. So and given the fact that we had,
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you, Bill. Gotcha.
Thank you.
Give us a minute, and then I'll get back to you. Given the 3-week gap and the things that we had to do, I tentatively put in a Monday, November 7th, to have an additional meeting, to essentially insert additional meeting in our schedule. So I'd like, I guess I need a motion and then a discussion if we're going to do that. Or can I make the motion as the chair and just go right to discussion? I can make the motion as the chair and go right to discussion. I've checked my calendar, I'm available. I know that's not everybody's, but is there anyone or any reason that November 7th is not an acceptable date to schedule an additional meeting?
How long will the meeting be? It's a little bit of a busy night for me because the next day is election day, but I can get it in there as long as I know ahead of time.
It could be a lengthy meeting. It's review and approve architect RFP would be the thing that was scheduled. Now that is on our current schedule, but
Well, Joe, if I can, Joe, can I add a comment to this, please?
sure.
So the intention, Joan, is to get the RFP for architectural services approved by the building committee. My intention is to issue it about a week in advance. So you'll have it to review. I'm hoping that at that meeting, you'll have comments and thoughts without having to review it, at that meeting. So if that's the only item on the agenda, it may not be that long because a lot of it's boilerplate from what we had when we issued the RFP for our services. But again, you'll have over a week to review it and comment on it if you'd like to.
Well, as long as I know ahead of time, I can just block out the time and do before and after on other stuff.
You will, okay. Does that satisfy you? Is that a good answer for you, John? Okay.
That's good for me.
And it's good for, Eileen said it's good for her too. Anybody, Bill, you comment?
So I have the building committee, the new school is on that night at 5:30. I don't know what time you're planning on. If you would like me there, I'll be there from 5 to 5:30. But with Mark Skalenka taking the lead, although I think I'm important, I don't think I'm that important. So I think you're good.
I will, if the meeting would be at 5:30, that would be our normal time, Bill. So, and the reason we don't have the meetings we didn't pick the first and third, which I think we originally talked about, was because we didn't want to conflict with the building committee for the school. But as a special meeting, if you're if you wouldn't mind, we can still go ahead and schedule it, and you could give your input in advance.
I'm
But again,
totally good with that. I just wanted you to know.
we'll talk about the RFP.
Yeah.
And Jacqueline, how about you? Are you double booked at that time then?
No, it's good. I just wanted to ask if this was Zoom or. Yeah, Zoom.
Would be, yeah.
Presumably it would be Zoom. We might as well
Okay,
just say-
yeah,
we might as well say
otherwise,
yes, it will be Zoom.
okay, otherwise, yeah, I would have to book a room, but I'm fine with that. Thank you.
Any other comments or about about a November 7th meeting, 5:30, with the specific objective to review and approve the architect's RFP, so it can be issued, and it will be issued. The RFP should be issued to us on the 28th.
Okay, so I'll second your motion then, Joe.
Okay. Any discussion? Any questions at this point? Again, any objections? I guess hearing none, it passes unanimously. So we will schedule, Jacqueline, if you could put that on our calendar, please. And everybody add that to your calendars, a special meeting on November 7th, 5:30 till completion, which we should be somewhere around 6:30 or 7. Okay, I guess
Sounds good.
now I'd like to go back to where we started and recognize Phil McGinn as one of our liaisons to talk about the cleanup and any security enhancements to the Academy School.
Thank you, Joe. I'll bring up my memo that I just put together this afternoon, but what I did is I investigated some options on cleaning and fixing the doors to re-secure the building. The primary cleaning would be to pick up the debris and the major stuff there, like trip hazards. We're not talking about vacuuming or sweeping. There's so much stuff in there that we don't really want to disturb. We're just talking about picking up the big stuff. And then securing the doors so they can work, so you can get in and out, and then securing all the windows to make sure that they're locked and secured. So if you'd like, I'll share my memo that breaks down the cost, Joe.
Go right ahead.
So I hope you can see it. It's addressed to the chairman. It breaks down the cleaning. And the estimate is, 2 men, 2 days, the masonry dump, 2,600. Then egress and security, that's, fixing the doors and securing the windows. The estimated 2 men, 2 days, another $3,180. If we wanted additional work, he just said, if you needed 2 more people, be another $1,270. My recommendation, if you like this, we could pick part of it or all of it. And if you like it all, my recommendation would be to time and material, not to exceed $7,050 to Munger Construction. That's the overview. I'm happy to talk in detail about any part of it or anything else you'd like to.
Bill, I have a question just to make sure that it's clear under the move furniture and items to create safe walk pathways. Does that mean they're going to clean? So to me, that could be interpreted as I'm just clearing out enough to make safe walkways and pathways. Or is it I'm taking everything out of the building, like everything that's in the library or the gymnasium, anything that's in classrooms, the lower level, all loose furniture will be removed?
Negative. Definitely not. Just picked up smashed pieces and just organized it a little bit. He's definitely not planning on, we'd need dumpsters for that. He's talking about a masonry dump truck, like a pickup load, a big pickup load of stuff. Definitely not a dumpster, and getting rid of everything. That's not part of the scope.
Will that eventually be part of the scope, or how is the building going to be turned over to the contractor in a year or so?
At the will of the building committee.
Does it make sense to do that work now? Is that what you're asking, Mark?
At some point, we're going to want to, somebody's going to pay for it. Either the contractor's going to have to hire somebody to discard all that stuff, or the town will have to do it. It's whether or not you want to do it now or do it later.
Right.
So, but at some point it should be cleared out of all loose stuff. Because it's obviously not going to stick around after the construction.
So we're putting this out to a local company versus requesting it to be covered by internal?
So say that again. I'm not clear on that.
So we're putting this out to, sorry, I don't know why I'm getting back here. An external company, not to have the town staff do it?
We don't have town staff that would be able to do this. I mean, I don't know who you are thinking, but, I don't know what town staff would do this work.
Hey, can I just add one comment too? Does it make sense to go through and itemize the stuff we want to remove and actually get a real quote for what we're asking them to do?
Yeah, because your price range is about $85 to $100 an hour for this quote. Just seems a bit.
Yeah, I'm just wondering what needs to be, just having been in the building through there, I'm not sure what needs to be moved, and I didn't see many egress ways locked and stuff like that. And you certainly don't want to go disturbing material, like you said, Bill. You don't want to start sweeping stuff up, because that could agitate stuff and put it into the air. I'm just wondering if there's that much work. Maybe it's just better to just secure the building and leave the rest, the cleanup and everything else, for when demo time comes, and kill a bird with one stone.
One of the things that, there are some things I think that we should talk about that should be removed. One of them is all the ballistic materials that are on the floor. That certainly does not create a good impression for anybody, and I think that's something that definitely should be moved and included. The stairs to the upper level have, although it's not vacuumed, there are pieces of broken glass and other things that would block the stairs. There's some, I guess we could go on and on about that, but
Yeah.
but there are some things that need to be taken care of before we even let the architects and whoever they have go in to begin that process.
Wouldn't we just tell them that they're going into a building that's been uninhabited for several, couple of decades now, and to put on the work boots? I wouldn't think you'd want, because otherwise, if you're talking broken glass, then that's sweeping.
Yeah, so the ballistics would be sweeping too, and I would be cautious about sweeping whatever's settled on the floor.
Because we don't know if there's asbestos dust that has settled down there. That's my concern. If we start moving this stuff around.
That's exactly what I was getting at, Joe.
Yeah.
And I think we have to weigh that liability against the trip and fall liability and the ability to access certain parts of the building that the architects and other representatives are going to have to access. Bill?
I'd like to ask Mark Sklanka his opinion. I was requested to do this, and I just make a good guess at what I thought. I have an opinion, but I'd like to know what Mark's thinking.
Yeah, my opinion, Bill, is, all the big loose furniture stuff that, isn't going to be used by the town, whether in this building or any other building, should be just discarded in a dumpster. Just talk, you'll get a better rate. It'll cost you less than the GC or the CM hiring somebody to do it, because it'll just be marked up 2 or 3 times by the time the bill gets to you. In terms of like the glass and things of that nature, I wouldn't worry too much about it. I mean, we'll let the designers know that if they're going to tour the building, that it's been vacant for a while, and to wear, hard soled shoes and not disrupt anything that's there. I mean, we'll avoid areas that are hazards. For me, it was really just more about just clearing out all the stuff that, won't be there. So it's an empty building when the contractor arrives in a year or so to do their work.
But do we need to have that done before the architects go through?
No.
Okay, I think securing the building is critical. I think that would be really good. And then we could potentially organize some kind of cleanup effort. That's a whole separate effort of getting everything and getting the dumpsters in and everything else. That's a
Yeah, I was gonna ask if there was any opportunity for us to make this like a town, like volunteer event at all to help.
No.
Okay. Hey, we're just throwing ideas out, Bill.
Yeah, no,
Sorry. Sorry, the
the
liability.
fire marshal will say no. Right.
That's
The only
fine.
one allowed in the
Hey,
building at this point is, the building committee members, if they so choose, and town employees who are on our insurance and covered under our insurance. Any volunteers are not, any public are not.
Got it.
This building is not open to the public and not an acceptable space for anybody to be in, except for, construction or activities or somebody in there in a reasonable manner. But, that's why you guys can go in a limited group. To me, the safety is not getting in, it's getting out. The building's reasonably secure. There's definitely windows that get broken every once in a while, and more stuff gets broken in. But, we've been in there a lot, putting boards up and securing the building for many years. And the longer it stays vacant, unfortunately, the more it sort of becomes an attractive nuisance, and kids keep breaking in. And they've been causing damage over the years, but it's been closed for almost 20 years.
And Bill, I'm assuming most of the water infiltration issues have been or will be addressed. That's the other major issue, is that if water's getting into the building, that's doing more harm to the building than not. And we don't want to necessarily add, a burden or a scope to the project as a result of, water getting in. I know we had the roof issues that I think you resolved, but is there any other water getting in via broken windows?
Well, Joe pointed out to me that there's some broken windows in the penthouse on the second floor, on the third floor. And I guess I didn't really pay attention to that. So that's something we would want to, I think, close in right away, get some plywood.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a nominal cost. And, I don't think that's a big deal. I think we could get plywood up there, in a couple days and just plywood up the broken windows. That's simple.
Yeah.
The other ones, there are some windows and, that we've over the time have screwed open, leaving a gap. So we got some air movement because they thought no air moving in there was a problem. Some of the windows do not lock properly. So there are people, but they would need ladders to get to some of those windows. So I think the building's relatively secure. I say relatively secure. And then Joe pointed out those broken windows up on the penthouse. So other than that, I think we're good.
I don't think it's safe to assume there's no water infiltration from the roof, though. It did look like there's some wet wood and other materials inside the building.
I think that's a fair assumption that there is some areas that we might have missed, but there were some major leaks that we resolved. We're definitely not saying it's a tight building, but I think the significant majority of it is, and the majority of the leaks that we had were fixed. As soon as we decided we're keeping the building, we spent some money on, addressing the leaks.
In addition to the leaks, the clogged drains can be a problem also. So especially now that it's fall and the leaves are coming down, can we include somehow in this at least a look at the roof drains and be sure they're not clogged with leaves?
Absolutely. And it's at your pleasure. I don't know what you'd like to do. about, getting it done right away, or I can change this proposal to, doing roof inspection and checking the leaves and putting the plywood on those windows. I can't believe that's going to be a big number, but I'd like to get that back to you before I go ahead and get it.
And Bill, I think what we heard was that the egress and access to the building should also be covered immediately. Because again, you put somebody in there, and if there's an issue, you can't get out with the doors locked from the outside. And even if someone were to go in, even someone would break in and there'd be an issue, they'd be unable to leave unless they were going out the other way. Without being able to go out the way to get in.
Egress and security, and I'm sure we could get the drains looked at, and we could, it's right here, this 3180. I'm sure that 2 guys, 2 days is way more than we need. Well, it depends on how many doors we do. We can modify that, but
It also includes video surveillance, which I think is good. That's probably what
no,
cost.
those are signs. Those are signs.
Oh, just signs that say video surveillance?
I asked them to put up signs that said no trespassing and video surveillance. The
Okay.
first select woman asked me to look into the video surveillance, and the cost to put it up just doesn't make any sense. It's, there's no internet, there's no connections, and Comcast, we can't get any Comcast stuff there. So the surveillance but that was part of this proposal, is to put up, no trespassing and surveillance. I can still put the signs up. So if you wanted to, I could pull the trigger on the 3180 not to exceed and give them a list of what you'd like me to have them address. And I had 5 doors. I picked 5 doors. I picked 2 on Academy Street side, 2 on the opposite side, Academy Street, this road side by the church, and then 1 in the front of the building along Route 1 and 2 on the other side. So 5 doors. I asked them to give me a ballpark on what it would take to get those opening and working, and then secure the windows. And I'm sure the plywood, and I'm sure you can inspect the drains and make sure that they're free and clear.
In the 3180?
Yes, in the 3180. I'm confident that we could get that done.
And then Bill, the second phase, if we follow Mark's lead on the second, as a second phase, a slightly longer term, would be to empty the building.
And I can get a proposal from this company and see what they say. And since it's not time sensitive, we can look at that. I'll get a hard number and I'll tell them I want to remove all furniture and all debris in the building out. And I'll get a hard number on that. And if you like it, we can move forward. If you're not, we can get other prices and discuss it then, because it's not time sensitive.
I like that.
What was the name of the company again? Sorry.
No problem. It's actually called the Pat Munger Construction. I have my memo. It says the Munger Construction. It's actually called the Pat Munger Construction out of Brantford. I believe they're out of Brantford. I've been working with them for many years. They've done, bid construction projects for us, and they also do and have a maintenance service, and they've been doing a lot of work for us, doing maintenance and repairs.
Got it.
Joe Paradiso, do they, would there be health and safety issues involving and moving the big pieces?
I mean, just probably from lifting, slip, trip, falls, the typical physical labor things, I think would be the issue, and getting them out the door where they put the dumpster and that stuff. I would just caution them against sweeping, disturbing dust and stuff like that. I would not, as Joan said, go sweeping up the ballistics, because any asbestos materials that have settled, just try to not disturb things. And I just would put an exception in there and say, does not include or hazardous materials are excluded from this work. This way they know not to dispose of paint and stuff like that.
Well, we're not doing any disposal on this one. You're talking about the next
I'm saying
one.
just let them know not to remove things. Yeah, I'm assuming they know what's hazardous material, but just so they know not to remove paint, oils, greases, things like that from the facility. Don't throw those in the dumpster, along with the desks and furniture.
Yeah, I'll get a proposal with that, and I'll make sure that they know that for the next
Well,
phase.
So who's going to do that? We're going to have the abatement contractor do that part?
That should, I mean, the hazmat disposal?
Oh,
Yeah.
I think that was included in what we discussed last meeting as part of the remediation cleanup work that we discussed last meeting.
Hey, Mark, does it make sense to put a quick spec together so Bill can send it out to bid, at least get a few bids for the big picture, not for this work?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we could help Bill write an RFP for a scope of services to remove, furniture and stuff. Yeah.
I mean, is it that much more expensive to have the abatement contractor just to hire someone to do it ahead of time? Maybe that makes sense or not.
Is it more expensive for an abatement contractor to remove desks? Yes.
No, but I'm saying, but if you had him kind of do everything in one shot, clean the floor, do everything.
Yeah, again, when they get to abating this building, whenever they do that, they will put it under containment and they will abate it and they will clean it and they will, do air sampling and make sure that nobody's in the building, shouldn't be in the building. And that when they take the containments down, that it's a clean site. I wouldn't conflate the two issues. I would keep them completely separated.
All right, so just a quick spec, I guess, just itemizing out what we want removed, right? And then Bill can send it out to bid.
Yeah. Bill, maybe you and I, because I'm down in Atlantic City for a couple of days. Maybe end of this week, you and I can meet at the school and walk and just come up with a quick scope of work.
Great. And there's no big rush on this. This isn't time sensitive. I think we can definitely put it together end of the week and we can have it at their next meeting. Is that the 7th?
Maybe this would be the 7th. And if it wasn't the 7th, it was the meeting after that is a week later, is the 14th. So it's time sensitive enough to get it done, but not to, we're not going to give you a deadline of the 7th. If it's the 14th, that's fine. If it's the end of November, that's fine too. I don't see any issue with waiting even another 30 days to get that done. If we've been waiting almost 20 years, if we wait another month, it's not going to significantly impact the situation.
Oh, so it's good winter work for a contractor anyway. It's easy work, so.
It won't take a lot of time. This is a couple days worth of work.
Yeah.
AJ wants to donate his time. He can go ahead and bid on it.
Well, he's on the committee, so he's allowed to go in the building.
Yeah, I'll just go with my pickup truck.
The AJ and Al's moving services.
AJ and Al.
I'll meet you there with my hazmat
Yeah.
mask on, right? Yeah. We'll get in our steps, right?
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
we will.
Do we again, I think do we need a motion here to codify what we just did?
So I will move that we request the Pat Munger Construction Company do the egress and security piece of that, and that a second item be created for an RFP for cleanup other than hazardous waste cleanup that will happen through the winter time.
And did we say that cleanup would include desks, et cetera?
Yes.
Yes. Like desks and
Furniture?
all,
Yeah.
anything that is not hazardous that can be taken out so that the first phase of remediation can happen without a lot of work to move stuff around.
Lean seconds the motion.
I'll second.
Any other discussion on it? Anyone opposed to this? That makes a unanimous approval. Motion's passed. And Bill, that gives you the lead on this, and with Mark on the helping with the second phase.
You got it. Thank you very much. Unless there's anything else from you, I'm gonna head out and
Bill, I did want one question on this that's not
Sure.
related directly to cleanup, and that's
problem.
we talked about motion sensors and lighting.
yes.
Is that would that be something that we still can do, or do we want to move that until the end of November also?
Well, if you're asking me to get prices and look into it, I can happily do that. I don't have a good feel for how many lights are out there and what a big deal it is. I need to look into that. If there's already fixtures there and they're working and we can put some kind of motion on them, that's one thing. If I have to remove the fixtures and put new fixtures up, or if I have to put wiring it's a whole nother thing. So I just need to look into it. And maybe I'll come back at the next meeting with a scope and stuff. If that's what you'd like me to do, I can look into that.
Okay, and even if it's not motion sensors, even if it's timers, I mean, there are, you know, daylight timers that, or photocell timers that will just leave things on in the evenings. I don't know how, I don't think there are too many neighbors who would object to lights if they were pointed down in that area, but if you could consider something simple enough that we can do it quickly.
I'll
And
be happy to look into it. So perimeter, exterior perimeter lighting.
yes, and on your, and I think on yours and Al's advice, I would also at some point, and Al, if you could set this up, talk to someone in the police department, Chief Drum, if that's the one, just to let them know our concerns and that there's going to be activity around the building. This building's going to be in the, you know, be in the local news. It'll be talked about it at you know, and maybe in a public forum in the next couple of months. And we just like to be sure that the police, we get police and a police patrol or police presence to keep the building secure and you know, especially in the overnight.
No problem. Al, are you setting that up? Would you like me to?
Either way, Billy, why don't you set it up? And if you need a little nudge for my office, I'll be happy to help.
Mount, I got it. No problem. I'll take care of that, and I'll get you the proposals on the lights, and I'll set Munger up, and I'll work with Mark on the specs for getting prices on removing the large furniture and other large debris that's non-hazardous. Awesome.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Bill.
Bill.
Have a great day.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, Mark, can you just let us know when you're gonna meet Bill down there at the school?
I will.
And I like to attend if I'm available, so,
Okay.
thanks.
There are, let's see, so we have somewhere between 30 and 60 minutes left, or 25. And there are two items on the agenda, and both of them can be, can take a while. The approval of the discuss the 2023 meetings is not as time sensitive to this meeting as the other point, which is set a working plan up for the next 6 to 8 months. So I'd like to take that next. I'd like to again iterate where that let you know where that came from. The last meeting, there was one of the questions from one of our members about how is the agenda set up for each of these meetings, and to date the agenda has been set pretty much by what things that we had to do, things that were required for the to move the project forward. Although in various conversations, both in the meetings and sometimes out of the meetings, we've talked about doing other things. First and foremost, we talked about going to another community center or other community centers to visit them, and you know, as a and not just a walkthrough, but the ability to talk to some of the principals at that in those community centers to get their input about what they did, how they did it, what they might have done differently, how they got to where they how they got to where they are, and are they satisfied? And as Mark and Dave and I were talking about the requirements of Colliers, I was making notes about some of the peripheral things we talked about, and that's the list, which has in no particular order of the of some of the things that we're going to have to be able to give information to or give to the architect on at some point, whether that's early on or during the design process. There are also things that I think that we need to maybe double check from some of their original decisions, and that's the one actually that's right on top. To at some point fairly early on, talk to both Austin Hall and Scott Cochran to see if their space, the space that they requested, 3 years ago, is still what they have in mind. Is that still appropriate? And are there any additional requirements that they would like to put on that space? And also things maybe that they hadn't talked about, what activities are they planning in some of those spaces? If they can look that far in the future, that would influence the way even the general building was, the general rooms were configured. Comments?
Yeah, do we want to, for the flexibility for the architects, do we just want to ask how much square footage or how many offices do you need? That kind of question versus specific spaces that they wanted? Or do we want to call out now those specific spaces?
Al, you've kind of not lectured me. You've talked to me pretty regularly about this. Do you want to opine on that question? Because you've had more direct experience.
Could you refine that question a little bit, Joan?
So my thought is I'd like to give the architects the most flexibility as far as design goes. So my thought process would be asking both Youth and Family Services and Senior in Austin for Beach and Rec, how much square footage or how many offices do you need to, and what types of space do you need versus here is what we've laid out and these are already set and you can't touch them.
Well, I think Joe is correct in his comment. These space requirements were defined some months ago, and I think it's very proper to check to see if it's still the right set of space requirements, and whether it's square footage or whether it includes divvying up the space. I think this committee should speak directly to those two department heads. Absolutely. I imagine. Well, I don't want to anticipate what they're going to say. Informal conversations with Scott Cochran tells me he's very focused on what has been designed so far and thinks it's appropriate. But I think the committee members, need to speak with him directly. I think our Beach and Rec is more flexible because we now have Beach and Rec relocated, as you know, down at Surf Club. And they've only been there since the summertime. They haven't been through a winter yet, but so far I think it's worked out very well. And it may be that Austin is rethinking where some of his staff people need to have their office space. So I think a conversation at this time, Joe, is very, very appropriate.
So if we just even just going to the first box on the upper right, if that's a yes, and this is an important discussion, not so much for the architects, but I think for Scott and Austin to be. I think it's probably more important to them than it is to the architects. They have, from what I understand, there was somewhat of a negotiation that got to us where got to the point where they were identified on the plan, and checking with them and being sure that that's still their need I think would be appropriate. We have 7 or so members on the committee. I think a couple talking to, 2 or 3 talking to Austin. I don't think we all need to go trooping into his office. And I don't think we have to bring him to a meeting. If we make these interviews only at meetings, we're not gonna be do it with the stuff we have to do with Colliers, and we'll never get through all the meetings. We'll end up having daily meetings. So I'd like to propose that some members of the committee volunteer to see Austin, and maybe other Austin and Scott, or maybe some Austin and some Scott. Although I think I prefer one group to speak to both of them, and see if we can get some feedback from them.
Joe, are you suggesting that we don't bring Austin and Scott to this next building committee meeting, or a follow-up building committee meeting, to just talk to the full committee about their needs?
Well, I don't know if that's necessary or not. That's why I would like to start with a smaller meeting, but I'm not wedded to that. If we think we just ought to bring them into the next meeting, both of them to the next meeting and talk to everyone at once and let everybody hear what they have to say. I mean, that would be, that's an alternate and that's perfectly acceptable.
I think it would be the best way for the information to get disseminated amongst everybody. In this way, if for some reason Erin's not there, but then, you know, you bring back, you know, thoughts and comments and she has a comment about, well, what about this or what about that? And we forgot to, I think personally, best practices is that if you bring them into the full committee and then you can all, you know, in advance that they're coming, you can think about questions to ask. Might work best for everybody, including Austin and Scott, that they met with the full committee once versus a small group and then, you know, lost in translation.
The thing that we can't do is we can't do that for everybody that we want to talk to.
No, but they're the main primary users of the building, I think, right? And Austin's Beach and Rec was proposed to manage the building for the town and facilitate, coordinate, and organize, and blah blah blah. But again, if you're talking to those two departments, my opinion would be to have them just come in as a panelist here and speak to you all and ask the questions that you want. I mean, I don't know what you think, Al or Dave or anybody else.
Well, aren't they actually liaisons to our committee, or maybe the liaisons to the other committee? But I agree, Mark. I think even if we had, say, Austin come to the next meeting and then Scott follow up the next meeting, or have them both, because I think the whole group being able to listen to them and ask questions, other ideas might come to us, right? We can think about as a group. So yeah, Joe, I agree with Mark. I think if we invite them and put an agenda item for their attendance, that would be great.
And because they're the two town departments that are going to be utilizing this building the most, and the design team, the design ad hoc design committee is going to be talking to the others. I think, you know, we know they need a bunch of the space. So I think it's appropriate for those two to get specific time in front of this committee.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess Jacqueline can
I think Deanne has a question.
Okay.
So how does this particular work, this task, relate to the advisory committee?
That's a good question. And how we work with the advisory committee is that's somewhere in that list of things that are on the schedule for, or would be on the schedule for today.
Joe, I think
right now,
there's a short answer, I think, to that question, Ann. It's a very good question. The advisory committee was put in place to talk to the public, to listen to the voice of the public. And I don't mean to diminish the role of the advisory committee, but that's their assignment. And that was deliberately set up that way so that this committee, this building committee, didn't get bogged down in having to deal with 20 different focus groups. I think the conversation with Austin and Scott is very appropriate for this committee. You are the final arbiters of space allocation in the building. And I think all of you should feel comfortable having all the facts and pleadings that exist in that. Just to remind you, of course, when this went to referendum, we made it very clear to the public that part of this building was going to be used for elements of town government. So there's no bait and switch here. This has been part of the plan all along. But I think Joe is perfectly right to check in and check up and see if those space requirements are still the appropriate ones.
And given what Al said, there's a clear delineation between the committees. If we're speaking right now to the town officials and the people who are going to be actually in the building from the town and the public, there may be other things on that list that we say would be inappropriate for us to do, and maybe that's something that I would have to talk to Bill about, or something there may be things that we want to do together. at least we'll get this one out of the way. I know neither of those people personally. Jacqueline, can you, can I ask you to at least contact them and let them know what transpired here tonight? And then I'll follow up and see if I get a date and time with them.
Okay, yeah, so it's just, am I inviting them to a future meeting to talk
Well,
about?
I think the next two meetings are the 7th and the 14th.
Yeah,
I guess we can take, we can put this up for discussion, but I would like to get them separately. I think they're both, there's enough in both of their areas that we should give them their full attention at a meeting and not try to do both. Any comments on that?
Yeah, I agree. I would do them separately.
Okay, so it's basically the 7th and the 14th would be the two dates that we would that are open. If one of them
Okay.
can make one and the other make another, then that would be a good start. And then I'll follow up and let them know why we're doing this and what we're doing and why we would like them at our meeting.
okay, that sounds good. And I just have one other thing to mention. I have to log off in about 10 minutes. Board of Selectmen is going to be starting at 7. So Joan is a co-host. Joan, is it okay if I make you the person to run it? Everything's being
Sure.
recorded, everything's being live streamed, so I'll just go back after and
Okay,
and if
Sure.
you guys do talk 2023 meeting dates, that's why this kind of is a conflict. Because I leave for Board of Selectmen, Aaron has to leave soon, Bill, Al, so if you guys talk about that, that was all. Thank you.
Jacqueline?
okay.
Okay, we have Austin Hall taken care of and Scott Cochran.
Mhm.
Maybe that's a good segue into the 2023 meeting dates. While at least some of Jacqueline's still here.
Joe, we
We-
had started talking about the committee working plans. Are we not the next 6 to 8 months? And then seemed to get a little sidetracked. Are we going back to that one? First?
We can go back to that first. Again, 2023 is still pretty far away, so if I thought we might be able to do the dates for the 2023 meetings quickly, but I think it took us some time to get this date. So maybe you're right, AJ. Maybe we should just continue with this. Things that we have to, the things on that list that are in no particular order. Is that we have any dissensions on that? No, okay. What Eileen says, Eileen, no, she's not. Well, I picked the first one. Does anyone want to pick something off that list that we might be able to act on? Or it's something that's not on the list?
Joe, I just had one question. I know last week I thought you were meeting with someone from the Greenway Trail. Did that occur? I noticed you
Yes, I
had.
did. Give a very short update on that. Because the meeting was not very consequential. There are people who are thinking about the Shoreline Greenway Trail and bicycle access to other places in the town and connecting. But there's no master plan for that. So I was only asked to consider, and this is only in the external, outside the building, to connect the area from Meeting House Lane at Lee Academy to the corner of Academy Street and Bradley Road somehow. And I pointed out that I take that route at times. I've actually biked that exact route, and I cut diagonally across the fields. But I didn't think cutting a bike path diagonally across the fields was a solution to that question. And the time frame that she gave was essentially indeterminate, when that might be connected on one side or another. So I will, I think that's something we should take up when we were talking about the external design of the building, the roads, the parking lots. But there's no definitive plan that we have to worry about hooking into.
Okay, because Mark, I think a lot of these items, or a few of these that were on Joe's list are kind of, we need to wait for the architect, right, on these.
Yeah, it'd be fine. Honestly, it'd be fine if you did,
Right, that's right. I think the tennis courts and the bike path and
Yeah,
the parking lot and stuff and.
Right.
Yeah.
That was just, again, as we were talking, I made notes.
Yeah.
What the topics that came up. I think that okay, I asked, is any, Joan, you want to?
So I have a question. Are we going to wait for the design committee to say, here are some of the activities the public wants to see? Like the gym activities that might be used or that type of stuff? Or are we going to say to the architect, here's kind of a blank slate. We want it to be as flexible as possible for as many uses as possible within the community.
I don't think that's clear. I don't have a clear answer to that one way or another. I think that the design committee is going to be touching some of these same points, and the same, and the question, I guess, on that specific point would be, do we want to in some way work with them as they go through this process? The charter says we can create a subcommittee. I don't know if we have to be as formal as creating a subcommittee, but if we knew that at some point the activity, the advisory group was going to be meeting with someone or in some way dealing with any of these issues, if we wanted to work with them so that it's not a surprise. So they don't give us, it's not like they have to hand us a report, that we're working with them on some of these topics, not necessarily all of them, as we go forward. Al has a question. He's up.
Yeah, I think Mark might be very helpful in answering that question. I think we should ask Mark to help us understand at what points in time will the architect need certain kinds of information? In other words, before a schematic is done, Mark, what does an architect need? And then as we get further in, when it's time to figure out the furniture, fixtures, equipment, and outfitting, what does the architect need to know? What are those rough dates? And I think that would help answer this question.
So yeah, the earlier the better for more major concepts, right? So we talked last meeting about major pieces that would impact the structure of the building, right? So Joan, you talked about flexibility. Yes, that's always been the idea. Beach and Rec, Youth and Family Services, flexible, whatever, right? So if the design review committee came back, and again, I always go back to the natatorium thing, because if the public says they want a pool, okay, that's going to add $5 million, $10 million to this project, right? And you're going to make the decision if you want to do that or not do that. The other example I used is rooftop gardens, right? These are things that we typically see. So, we've got access to a roof through that penthouse, we want a rooftop garden there for the community. Okay, now it has to be accessible, which means you have to have an elevator that goes up there. So now you're changing major components of the building to accommodate program. That would need to be decided very early on, right? Because what we're going to do is the first 3 or 4 months of the design, we're going to come up with a program and a schematic design that Al just spoke about, and it's going to get estimated. And that says, okay, we're on budget or we're over budget. Well, I can tell you, if we add major structural pieces to this that were not envisioned for the 15 point, we're going to add budget. Now, I'm not telling you can't exceed your budget. I'm just telling you have to go back for more money, if that's the case. Now, if we decide to keep Beach and Rec where they are, or wherever they are, and Youth and Family Services, and every other space is flexible, and whether it's going to be used for Zumba, spin, yoga, infants, mommy and me, dance, basketball, that doesn't matter. Those decisions can be made a year from now. Because now you're just talking about how you're going to outfit the space. Do we need to have padding for spaces? Do we need to have kiddie furniture? Do we need to have maybe some technology in the spaces? Those can be decided later on. So I don't know if that answers your question. Major soon. Stuff that, you know, what kind of whiteboards you have, or furniture, that could be down the road.
Sort of a follow-up question, Joan, but I know you had maybe a follow-up question as well. So
Go ahead,
if
Eddie.
you want to go first. So looking at the dates that we have sketched out here, we're looking for architectural submissions by the 21st. So it sounds like we're not going to have a lot of fidelity in exactly what we're going to need. And, you know, what I guess my question is what should we expect to get by the 21st of November from architects? Will we have enough? Will we be able to give them enough information so they could come back with rough sketches and say, here's our general vision, and then we can kind of pick the architect we align most closely with? Or is it going to be too vague, and then we're going to end up like not having all the answers we need by the time we are asking people to come and bid on this project?
They're gonna, honestly, AJ, what you're gonna see from the architects is a mix of ideas or approaches, right? Some architects are gonna say, I haven't met with anybody. I haven't met with you. I haven't met with the town. I can't propose anything for a building because I don't know what you want. The RFP is gonna say it's gonna be a community center that will likely house beach and rec, likely house youth and family services, likely refinish the old auditorium, not likely, will refinish the old auditorium, and general flexibility for the building, bringing it up to ADA accessibility, full hazmat remediation, $15.9 million. So some are going to come at you with some, well, I can tell you QA&M is going to come at you with the design that looks a lot like what you've seen for the last 2 years, because, well, that's what they came up with. And other firms are going to say, you know what? I haven't met with anybody yet. I don't know ultimately what you want. So here's how we're going to approach the first 2 or 3 months of the project, with lots of meetings and data dump and charrettes. These are some of the buzzwords you'll hear. And then at the end of that will lead to a product that looks like this, and then that, and then here's your new community center we just did for you in Windham, Connecticut. Others will take a stab at a couple of office spaces and flexibility, because they know community centers, AJ. They know generally what goes into community centers, right? And they're gonna match you with some concepts of what they could look like from a flexibility perspective. You know, one of the concepts was to enclose that atrium, make it occupiable space, right? Seems great. Some architect may come at it and say, no, that's a bad idea. Here's what I would recommend. Oh, okay, that's a really cool idea. We don't know. So it's going to be a mix. Honestly, they're going to be given as much information as any other project that we typically solicit architect services for.
Okay.
Here's the program, roughly speaking. Here's the budget. That's the keys. The budget is the key, by the way, because if you don't give them a budget, they're going to give you like way crazy stuff. But we give them a budget, and 15.9 is not construction, by the way. That's project. What they're going to have to play with when it comes to construction is about, I think, $12 million. So they're okay. What can we do for $12 million with this building to give them what they want?
So is the key that we're not going to give them the baseline plans that were done a year or so ago,
no,
and let them sort of rethink it on their own?
Yeah.
So
the last thing you want to do, Joe, is say this because you're going to get architects to say, well, I'm not going to submit because now they don't have a plan. You know, so why? Yeah, no, I
like it.
Let the creativity juices flow.
Yeah, I think what you said though, Mark, was that all those plans are out on our website. So they've all so if they really are interested in seeing what the original plan was, it'll be out there for them to see.
Yeah, and some of them may take shots at them.
Joe, can I ask one question? And maybe Mark, I'm looking at the dates on our meeting. And you have our our next meeting, the November 7th, review and approve the RFP. But it says that RFP is going out on the 28th. Is it just a typo, or is there,
It's going to be issued to the members of this committee.
No, I think,
I think that was, well, go ahead, Mark. I interpreted your, the point was we would review the committee would review the RFP before Colliers submits it to the.
yeah, so
architect.
those are the proposals come in on the 28th. So what'll happen, Aaron, is you're gonna get the proposals on the 28th. So the proposals are reviewed and you shortlist down to the 3 or 4 that you
Yeah.
want to interview.
No, I'm talking about on the line item of November 7th,
Yeah.
Yeah.
where it says review and approve the architect RFP to
Yes.
be issued on 10/28.
Oh,
So is
that
that
should be,
when you're,
yeah, that should be
that I just didn't, it seems like you're
yeah,
posting the RFP before everybody reviewed it. I just didn't,
No,
I figured
no.
it was a typo,
yeah,
but
that's a typo there. It would be issued on the 8th. of
Okay.
November. I think what you did, Joe, was originally we were talking about issuing it on the 28th, and that was after the 27th. The Board of Selectmen ratifying our contract, but then that got changed to a later date. I think November 4th is what I heard.
I think what I meant by issued would be that was the date that we had talked about, that Colliers would send it to our committee. Our committee would then have between the date of that, whatever that issue is, and the date that it's going to go out to the architects, which is it's on here somewhere.
That's correct.
So whenever, so that
Got it.
it would give us, the committee, approximately a week to review it before we discussed it.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't just see it for the first time at a meeting and then be expected to be able to discuss it intelligently.
That makes more
Okay.
sense.
that makes perfect sense. I wasn't sure if I missed something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not all worded properly, but that's because I wrote it in Excel.
Yeah,
It's hard to be coherent in Excel.
that's true. Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, I think part of our discussion with Austin is not necessarily just what people might be there because they're going to be managing the community center, but what the true needs are. Considering it's one basketball court and we have a full gym at town hall on the town hall campus. So I'm just trying to figure out, I think we need to talk through with him what the thoughts were as far as programming goes. And he may have some new ones because he's now new to the whole Beach and Rec group and have a different viewpoint than what was potentially being talked about. That was one of the things I wanted to talk about, was the fact that I kind of want to give the architects as open of a concept as possible. From having walked the space, from a theater perspective, the stage that's actually in the gym is a better stage than the one that's in the quote unquote auditorium part of it. It has the capability to fly scenery. It has the capability to drop things down below the stage door. So and you can load things in and out much easier than you would. And it has no light versus there's so much light in that front area for a theater that it would become, we'd need to add the darkened shades or something to darken out during performances if you were going to do that. So that was just my thought. I want people to come at this with a fresh perspective, so to speak, as much as possible. I think on all the pieces of the puzzle.
Sean, I think
And if
you're
you
right.
don't get- Yeah.
From a programming standpoint, if you don't want to limit the architects and sort of give them that free rein to think about things other than sort of how we envisioned it a year or so ago, they will need some programmatic points of head count, not just for gyms, but even for their own offices, head counts, things like that to plan around. So I don't know if we need to include that in the RFP and get that from them over the next couple of.
Well, Joe, building code's going to dictate head count, not the other way around. I mean, the space of that gym and the auditorium is going to dictate how many people can actually sit.
No, I meant for their offices and stuff like that. So when we say there's going to be beach and rec and there's going to be beach and rec, there's going to be youth and family services, they'll need some programmatic information around those spaces, not the gym, not the occupancy things.
Yeah.
Their offices.
Yeah, that was kind of the approach I was thinking of from an office space and programming space that they know, because
That's
You
what you
can
mean by
family sees-
programming.
yeah, they need programming space in one area and office space in another, or in the same area or whatever, so.
Are they
Okay.
using offices? Are they using cubes? Is it all open concept? Are they talking about 10 people, 5 people, 4 people? Are they hybrid? All this stuff can come into play to determine what their office space looks like.
Those all sound like great questions for us to ask.
Yeah, but
Austin and
I think
Scott.
Joe's point was well made, though. We should specifically ask those two for their office
Yeah.
needs.
I agree.
Or do we not give the architects free reign over their area? I don't know. Maybe that's the question.
No, you don't want to give the architects free reign over their spaces. I mean, they're not going to want free reign. They're going to want to know exactly what you want. And we might actually already have that now that I think about it. Early on when we were doing the planning, we might have received their program.
And is it still the same?
Well, that's why it's good to bring them back, because it's been
Joan, you're on mute.
Yeah, I think if you've got anything that you've had for when we did the initial concept design, and then we can just kind of come back to them and say, okay, here's what you initially said. Is this still the case, or is there a bigger need or a lesser need?
Yeah.
You know, those are the two questions, I guess.
And then also expand on it. There's especially Beach and Rec, there's more than just their office space. It's their programming space. Is the flexible environment we're talking about suitable for what they see that they're going to be doing? Or is Beach and Rec going to be all outside? It's going to be down at the surf club. It's not. So there is no programming for Beach and Rec at the community center. It's going to be somewhere else. So it's office space and programming space that they're planning for that building.
Yeah, I think for both departments, yeah, that's the piece we need to ask. Okay.
So here, let me share my screen if you don't mind. This is what we had from them, which is exactly what you're talking about, a programming document. Existing space, number of staff, recommended square footages of, this is for youth and family services, not for Beach and Rec. I'd have to look for that. So we've got a big head start.
Great. Can you send that out to the whole committee? That would be great
Sure.
to look at. Yeah. That gives us a.
Do you have the same information from Beach and Rec?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for, Joe.
So do you,
For some reason, Joe, I remember their space, it's smaller and not as defined, because youth and family services needed a lot more space. I don't know if I ever received from Austin. I'll ask him if it's okay with you. I'll ask Austin if he has a programming document that he shared with the previous firm, and I'll get that from him.
so is the plan to provide that programming documents to the potential architects, or to actually provide them, here's the space we want carved out and what we want it to look like?
No, the intention, Joe, is to give them the programmatic square footages that we need. We need 6,000 square feet for youth and family services. Now, like I talked at the last meeting,
Okay.
they wanted one area of the building isolated from their core functions. So they wanted the youth therapy to be in a different area of the building, down on the lower level, with isolated in and out for their own programmatic desires. That we would want to share with the architects, because that's a direct request from the end user.
And it may have been Scott Erskine who supplied information the last time around, because I don't think Austin was yet over Beach and Rec for that timing.
Honestly, yeah, I remember, but I think Austin, I only dealt with Austin.
Oh, okay.
I worked with Scott. I dealt with Scott with Surf Club, but not with Beach and Rec. It was only Austin.
Okay, great.
But I'll ask him. I mean, if he doesn't have it, maybe he got it from Scott. Maybe he left it in his files, but I'll ask him.
Okay.
One other thing that I'd like to address I don't even know if it made the list, but we had talked about going to other community centers, ones that are up and running, and and not just going through them as a walkthrough privately, but to actually see if we can contact someone and get a tour. Someone who might be able to answer some questions, someone at a, not just a docent, but one of the, a principal at the community center or in the town. And I'd like to be able to set that up sooner rather than later. I know a lot of the information we're talking about isn't needed till later, but there may be a lot more information we'll have to get to. So it's not this isn't the only thing that we have to do. Would anyone like to volunteer for that effort? Joan?
I'll be a part of that.
Yeah, I'd love
Okay.
to see other ones and talk to people. Yeah.
Okay, and when you do that, if you could invite 2 other members of the committee, so we don't get a quorum, although when I talked to Lauren Rhines last time, which was a little bit a while ago, Eileen said, I'd like to participate too. So that's Eileen Davis. If there is something
I'd like to
a
go too, Joe, just so I can keep a record of what I'm hearing and seeing, just
Okay.
so I could.
Yeah.
if it's a tour, we're not necessarily limited to 4 people, or to 3 people rather, that we can have, if it's, as long as we're not discussing any, in that case, we certainly would not be discussing any plans or making any decisions. That'd be information only. So if you could invite the whole group, and then we'll see if we need, I don't know if we want to troop 10 people through it. But if you invite the group, we can then divide it up among whatever number of places you think you can set up.
So are there any in particular that we would want to see, I guess is my question. Are there specific ones? Do we want to go back to the list that the ad hoc group did a few years ago?
I think Branford has been talked about by several people.
Right.
And I've also had some people mention Guilford as another one, and they're close.
Right.
So after that, I think there's, I'll pass and let anybody else say if they have an interest.
Yeah, I think
There's a new one, Rocky Hill too, right?
Rocky Hill and Wyndham have community centers as well. And I'll find some other ones. It depends on how many you want to go to.
I've recently been to the one in North Haven and the one in Woodbridge because they have pools for the swimming meets, but I mean,
Let's not go there then, Dave.
exactly. Out of those 2.
And I have a suggestion from Eileen that we coordinate with the members of the advisory committee. If they're planning on doing something like this, in the immediate future, that we should make, we don't want to have two groups going there asking the same question, that we can coordinate members of both groups so that we can not, as I said, not do 2 twice, not have the same people say the same thing twice to us.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think there's anyone that's been assigned that from Bill's group, but I'm going to talk to Bill on Friday, or maybe I could even talk to him sooner, to see if that effort is being coordinated by anyone in particular that I could refer you to, Joan.
Okay. Mark, did your company do some of these projects?
We did. Yep.
Okay. So you probably have the contact people?
Yep.
Okay, great. So I can,
Yeah, you can work with me on
Yeah.
Contact information.
okay. All right, so I've got Branford, Guilford, Rocky Hill, and Wyndham. I think that's probably a good start. And if you're in other towns and you happen to be near their community center, jump in and let me know.
Jump in the pool, bring your suit and jump in the pool.
Yeah, I'm not going to the, do not bring up the pool. That will be,
Well, I think it's
well, if I win Powerball tonight, then we'll have a pool. How does that sound? With $500 million, what the heck?
Right.
Well, I think it's common now because a lot of high schools don't have pools anymore. You know, they're building them at community centers, you know.
Yep.
It's nature.
Which is interesting to me because then to me, that's a higher liability piece to have a pool in a community center, my thought process, but
Well, the maintenance fees are really expensive for the pools. I forget what Cheshire had budgeted per year. It's a lot.
it's huge.
No, it is huge. It's not so much building the pool and the structure, it's maintaining it.
Having just a little old pool in the backyard, I can tell you, it's not cheap. And every year I think, should I just fill it in? So,
Be careful what you do. We had a neighbor who filled it in several years before we moved in, and they forgot to like break up the bottom, and the pool literally began floating to the top. And there was, instead of a level surface, there was a mound in their backyard.
yeah. No, I just replaced the liner. It's going to be around for another 20 years. So
Excellent.
we'll have to have a summertime gathering here. So,
Well, that's very generous of you, Joan, considering this is October.
well, I have a fire pit too. We can hang around the fire.
Is it heated? Is the water heated?
No. And it is closed. I'm thrilled that it's closed because we closed it just before the real heavy winds came. So all the leaves and stuff is on top of the cover, not below it. I'm psyched. I timed it right for the first time in probably 25 years. So
I don't believe we need a motion for any of this, for this type of work. And it is part of our charter to work with the advisory committee. So, and I'll contact Bill tomorrow and let him know what our plans are. And again, not have him, not duplicate efforts with them. I'll also ask him what he might be planning, and to see if that's if there's something that we can tag along on his immediate schedule. The last, okay, I'll take I'll take a back seat again. And is there any other issue that we'd like to bring together in the last 10 minutes or so that we might want to begin the process of investigating, at least now, for now?
Do we want to try? So right now there's a schedule for 2023 that stays with the first and the third Mondays. And I think is that correct? Yes, right?
That's the way I put it in that.
Oh, actually, it's the second and the fourth.
Second
right?
and fourth, yes.
Sorry.
That's our current, and that's and that issues with that interferes with the Board of Selectmen. The first and the third interfere with the or overlap with the group, the schools group. So Mondays would pretty much be out if we were to go forward and not overlap anybody who's already existing.
Okay. Any thoughts on other days, maybe?
Well, there's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I'd say.
I don't think we want to be, if we do
I'd say-
Fridays,
I'd
it might get out of
I'd say-
control.
I'd say Friday I would veto Friday.
I'll
Some people
second
do
that
meet-
veto.
Some people do meet on Sunday. I don't think that's appropriate. So it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And
Joe, is there a potential I could do them during the day? Do they have to be at 5:30 at night?
no, we can make them anytime.
I mean, I don't know how others, but I mean, I could probably carve out something during the day if I knew what it was every week or every other week. I don't know how others feel, but it's just tough, like having kids, because I have kids out right now. They have to go pick up soon. They're here or there, you know?
Yep.
I mean,
As
to
long
me,
as
just
there's
what if,
Zoom.
go ahead.
As long as there's Zoom.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was gonna know, do we want to earmark any of these particular meetings for in-person, such as interviews and stuff like that? That may be a second topic, but I'm no problem moving it to Tuesday or Wednesday. I prefer not Thursday. Thursdays get a little hectic for me at work and they become long days. So Tuesday, Wednesday, I think are better.
okay, I just want to.
Yeah, Dave, I'd be okay in the middle of the days if we probably couldn't go more than an hour. I don't think I could carve 2 hours out in the middle of my day.
This is gonna be tough.
I could do an hour.
But I think even these meetings, if we keep them at night, we gotta try to keep them to an hour if we can, you know, going forward.
That's, as we get to some of the discussions with Colliers, that will be difficult.
Yeah.
Mark's laughing at us. We're thinking we can be done in an hour.
He's blaming me.
Yeah, because
Don't
Mark
blame
just
me.
keep talking, right?
Yeah.
We're gonna go in cryptic code.
How long was our meeting with the three of us on, that went about 2 hours.
Yeah, but Dave and I were talking about baseball stuff in colleges. You know,
Yeah, right.
Used to happen about 45 minutes.
I'm retired. I could do just about anything, but I agree that I agree with AJ that people who are working can't necessarily carve out more than an hour. And I don't think we can hold.
Again, we can
meetings to
keep
that.
them to an hour as long as we keep them focused. And as I mentioned, maybe in one of our conversations, there's gonna be a lot of meetings before meetings, right? There's gonna be working group meetings. There's gonna be subcommittee meetings. A lot of things will be discussed and debated more heavily during those meetings, and that the building committee meetings may be a little more streamlined. The architect interviews are going to take way longer than an hour, so that's going to be a 3 or 4 hour night. But once we start getting into the flow of things, we do see building committee meetings lasting only an hour, as long as they're targeted to specific topics. And if there's anything major up for discussion, that there's a subcommittee that has largely debated the issue, and then they bring the recommendations to the full committee. That's how you get through meetings in an hour versus, an hour and 24 minutes right now.
Yeah, just a second thought too. I would prefer to keep them at night. I want to avoid certain work things taking priority, and we may run into issue of actually having a quorum if people start getting work priorities and things like that in the middle of the day.
So the other option is to have it early morning.
Yeah, that's what I've seen. We don't see, we see like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock morning meetings. We don't see typically anything after 10, 11 o'clock unless they're at night. But the morning meetings we've seen for building committees are usually at 8 o'clock in the morning or like 9 o'clock in the morning.
So CIP, which is the other one that I've been on that has evening and morning meetings, they're doing all evening meetings this time around, but we've done it so that we actually have a CIP meeting at 7:30 in the morning. And you go and, if it's Zoom, it's that much easier. But I'm flexible from a work perspective. I can pretty much set my own schedule unless a project heats up, then I could be out.
Morning meetings are tough for anybody with kids going to school.
Okay. I'm an empty nester.
Rub it in her face.
Hey, I'm enjoying it. The pandemic's over and the kids are out. I'm happy at this point, except for the dog. So.
I'd be fine with Tuesday or Wednesday evening if that's, we want to do something
Eileen
like that.
says, I have commitments on Tuesday and Wednesday. I might be able to shuffle, but Thursday's best for Eileen.
Okay, so I'm booked Thursdays until, because of, let me just bring up the CIP's calendar again. 17th, 1st December. So I have one on January 12th. If we're talking 2023, if we're talking 2022, I am booked the 17th, the 1st, the 8th, and the 15th of December that's for capital improvement program.
I think we're talking about 2023.
Okay.
We've already set the dates for 2022.
So I think, 2023, Thursdays are fairly open for me too.
Thursday is a better day than Tuesday. I'm pretty much free Wednesday. I do have monthly meetings on Tuesday, sometimes twice, but sometimes two meetings a month on Tuesdays. But Thursdays would be open for me.
Thursdays are fine for me as well.
Thursdays are fine for Eileen.
Thursdays are wretched for me.
Or what?
Thursdays are horrible for me.
Okay.
We cram everything into Thursdays.
Okay.
Now you just spend half a day traveling.
Joe, if it's
Yeah,
helpful,
Thursdays are usually tight for me too.
we can, Jacqueline can send out a doodle poll where everybody kind of
That's
can
probably
check
best.
in your
That's the
times.
best.
Yeah,
And then
let's do
we'll
that.
end up that'll kind of calculate where we have the most consensus for time
Easier.
periods and at least share that with you. That might be a little easier than,
It'll have to be a doodle
Everybody
poll
try to-
that has like a hard no and okay, I can be flexible if that's
That would
what
be great.
the people choose. So there has to be more than yes and no. It's have to be yes, no, and
maybe.
Yeah, that's how they usually are.
Yep. I can talk to Jacqueline about that if that's helpful and send it to everybody and staff too, because it would be helpful to be able to make sure that at least we have some staff here for consistency as you guys move forward too.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay, so our regular meeting with the RFP review, the interviews is on December 12th. That's what we've currently
Yep.
plotted.
that is the date based on the current schedule. The current schedule, Collier's current schedule.
Okay, and do you feel, Mark, that we can do these interviews in one night and they have to be in one night? Okay.
Yes. Yep. It'll be a long evening, Joan, but I think you should do it in one night. It's the cleanest way to get through it.
Right.
Do we
Okay.
want to do those in person?
I would suggest in person, similar to our interviews. Those are best done in person. For
Yeah,
those
I
that
would like to
can't,
do
maybe
that.
have a Zoom option for somebody that can't make it, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Erin, can you look and see or let Jacqueline know that we'd like to do a hybrid on that one day? I think that would be worth it to do the hybrid, and that way there, if they're the public can also hear our questions and everything else of the architects. Because the project manager, no offense, Mark, but I think the people are more interested in the architects who are potentially going to be chosen than the project manager. I know, crazy as it is.
I can look into that. I'll let you know. Is there any other question? Not to kind of rush you, and I apologize. I have an item on the Board of Selectmen agenda that I have to hop off and hop onto their meeting this evening.
I think we're about ready to close the meeting, Erin, so.
Okay.
So that would mean that you don't get another item, and hopefully no one gets another item.
Okay, I'll work on the doodle poll with Jacqueline and the hybrid abilities for 12/12.
I think if we have
And,
enough.
and a room for 12/12.
Yes, yes. Yeah, we'll try for meeting room A.
So we wouldn't be selecting the architect the same night we interview them. We're just going to interview them. Everyone goes home. We come back at the next meeting and then talk about who we want to go forward with, right?
Actually,
Yeah.
that's the way I have it scheduled is that will be another special meeting for the 19th of December.
Okay,
why
that's
don't
the
I-
next week. Okay.
Let's move to create a special meeting on the 19th, because I don't think we did that yet, right?
No, we have not.
Okay,
We will create it and we can always circle back to it if it's if the schedule changes or if there is some horrific number of people who can't make it. So do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Second,
Second?
any discussion? Any objections?
No.
Hearing none. Motion passes. So we'll set up we have two special meetings to set up, one on Monday, November 7th, and the other one on, where is it?
The
Monday,
12th.
December 19th.
Monday, December 19th.
Yeah, right.
And then you have a question on here. Should we cancel Tuesday, December 27th? Do we want to talk about that later?
Why don't we hit that one the next meeting?
Yes.
Yeah.
I would vote yes, but anyway.
Other than have a Christmas party or just a holiday party, I guess we would say.
Yeah.
Just a-
I think the intent of that meeting was the Board of Selectmen signing off on the selected architects. I don't even think that needs to be a building committee meeting. I think that just, if the Board of Selectmen is meeting that day, that was just a,
The 27th would be our regular meeting date. So that's why it's still on,
Okay.
that's why it's on there.
Okay,
And so, and we even advertise that as our,
yep,
as a meeting date. So if we're going to cancel it, I don't know how much notice we have to give, but we should consider canceling it at that point. We can all go to the Board of Selectmen meeting. Why not?
Just what my kids will probably want to do with me.
Tell them they serve ice cream.
when AJ's not cleaning out the building, he's gonna be at Board of Selectmen meetings.
Yeah, come on, kids. We just finished cleaning the building. Let's go to the Board of Selectmen.
I was gonna say, you might not be done cleaning it by then, but.
Okay.
So, the only other activity that, that's going to come up is I'm going to talk to Bill Stableford on Friday, again, and we'll get back to everyone if there's anything that comes out of that of interest.
Okay, so we still have public left. If you're on, we have one attendee, or is that Eileen?
Probably Eileen.
430-9786, maybe.
Let's see, I'll pull up, see if I can pull up her text, if I can see it. That's me, she says.
Okay, so I was just gonna say, any public comments? We have no public.
The last the public comments. Fair enough. Motion to close the meeting? Or can I close the meeting and ask for objections?
You can say, without hearing any objections, we can adjourn the meeting, and we'll all jump and say, no, that's okay.
If I hearing no objections or without any objections, I will close the meeting and adjourn the meeting.
Have a good evening.
Sounds
Good
good.
evening,
Thanks, everybody.
everyone.
Take care, everyone.
Everybody.
You can stop recording, Joan. We're all done.
Okay, I will pause the recording. Yes. Okay, we are good. Good job.